Choose wisely.
Speaking of choosing wisely, we're going to talk a little bit about WordPress meetups tonight, or today rather.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
How long is this episode?
Well, it may be all the way till night. So this particular episode of WPwatercooler is brought to you by ServerPress, makers of desktop server. You can go over to their website over at serverpress.com and go take a look at all the fun stuff that they have going over there over at serverpress.com. Thank you very much. All right, let's go around the room real quick. Get everyone introduced. Say, start us off.
Oh, I'm
Who are
Say.
you?
What's up? How's it going?
What do you do?
I make shit. That's where I'm at today. I choose gifts wisely, or I don't choose them at all. WordPress happens. What is life? My two of my favorite internet people are fighting.
Oh, that's good.
I have nothing to say.
Wow.
WordPress, huge WordPress, preach WordPress. I know it's happened.
Oh man, we finally hit the end of it. Cosper, how about you? Tell us about yourself.
Hey everybody, Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mullenweg. Just happy to be here and talk WordPress today.
Good to have you. Steve, what about you?
I am Steve Zengit. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress Meetup. That's what we're talking about today, right?
Oh yeah, that's what we're talking about. How about you, Jonathan? Tell us about yourself.
Jonathan Wold, up in beautiful North Idaho. I love talking about WordPress, and I'm a new member of the WooCommerce team at Automatic.
Nice.
Nice.
How interesting.
Glenn, how about you? Save us, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn Ingram, owner of Web Search Pros. We do web design, web development, optimization, and play a little bit with accessibility.
And you run a meetup as well, don't you?
Well, I'm a co-organizer of a co-group of a meetup of a subset, so kind of. Yeah, we started accessibility meetup up in Jason's Whittier meetup.
Awesome. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog. I do this show as another show called WP Blab. Feel free to go take a look at that. And like Glenn talked about, I help co-organize the Whittier WordPress meetup. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about meetups. So Jonathan brought this one up because he lives in, we're not going to like ruin your OPSEC here or anything, right? You live in some place called Idaho, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Small little state.
And and you're wanting to set up a meetup, but you're also wanting to attend a meetup? Like, what do you got going on there?
We kicked off a WordPress meetup here about, I feel like it's been almost 2 years, but it corresponded delightfully with when meetups were added to the WordPress dashboard. So we've had a steady stream of interests. We have over 300 members who are on the registration list, and we've kept it up once a month since then. And it's gone through sort of peaks and ebbs and flows of attendance. And I feel like I've learned a lot in that experience. One of the mistakes that I feel like I contributed was making the meetup topics too technical to sort of correspond with my interest in the fellow organizers. And whereas now, anyway, so I'm in a mode of trying to reinvest in that particular meetup and support the team that's sort of growing around it. And I think there's a lot more room for additional meetups in this general area. So I'm wanting to just learn more about it. So I'm trying to see what other people are doing, what lessons have others learned, and I want to put them into practice in my area here, where I think there's more than enough interest to support multiple sort of healthy meetups here. So that's the context for me.
So, Jonathan, how many organizers do y'all have at your meetup?
So we currently have, not counting myself, there are 2 others.
Okay. Yeah, see, I used to organize the Bakersfield meetup here, and I ran into a little bit of a snag because I was really the only one who was super passionate about starting a meetup, and I ended up becoming like the sole person who basically we couldn't really get any takers on presentations on as an organizer. I'm sure that a few of you have found out that sometimes when the meetup is starting off and small, it's kind of hard to get people to want to step up and talk. So just kind of curious, like how y'all have punched through that, because I mean, I ended up having to hand off the meetup because I lost my passion for it, because I spent 6 months coming up with new topics every month and then giving those presentations to like 2 people, 3 people, and it's kind of hard. So I can attest that having multiple organizers is good, but
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why are you people doing meetups?
So,
As opposed to what?
As opposed to, I don't know, like sitting at home and eating dinner. I don't know. Like, no, I mean it really. Like, are you doing it? Is it an existential question, Steve? I'm in a mood. Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. Say, go for it.
Nothing wrong with her being in a mood?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's typical. But like John, like, what is your impetus? And Cosper, what was your impetus for wanting to start this? Did you want to connect with other WordPress people? You want to teach people stuff? You want to market your business? You want to like, what, this is what I find really frustrating about meetups is that they're just like, oh, we should have a meetup because we may want to do a WordCamp someday or whatever. So we have to have a meetup in order to do a WordCamp. But like, this is what I feel like a lot of meetups struggle with is what is the point of the meetup? Like, what is the purpose of this meetup other than, and all the organizers seem to struggle with this. Like, have this existential crisis of what am I doing this for and whatever. And so that's my question to you.
When I originally co-organized Meetup, I had a friend of mine who worked at another agency who was in town. We're like, hey, this would be fun to sort of do together. And we've been encouraged by a mutual friend to like, hey, you should start a meetup. So that was kind of the extent of it.
What did your friend say? You should start a meetup, what, just for your health? Because it's fun?
That was about...
Make new friends?
It was planted about 3 years ago. So it was more like a thing to do that I was curious about. Now, the experience that I've had, like I started reflecting for the past few months. What?
I mean, basically just for shits and giggles. You're like, I just wanted to see what happened.
There's inherent value in experiencing new things. And it was definitely in that category. Like, I'm like, I don't know where this is going to go. The experience over the past year that's finally culminated my re-interest in it is having people show up who are there for no other reason than their interest in WordPress, and to see them at that sort of early stage of not knowing what to do or how to think about it. And to see, for me, it's like seeing the lights go on when they're like, oh, that's what I need to be looking at, or this or that. So for me, it's very much my own motivation. There's like a joy in service that comes from going to someone who's new to the community and being able to connect the dots and see the lights go on. And what sort of helped me finally lower the stakes, because I had this feeling of like, we got to have this presentation, we got to do this. I'm like, wait a minute. Even if we just have a space where someone can show up and learn something about WordPress and connect with other communities, like that's good enough for me. That sort of took the pressure off. And that's been the baseline of my re-energy into building a team around saying, hey, we don't have to have some big show or something, just showing up and having a space where someone at any level can come in. So now I think I really enjoyed the service aspect of it and seeing people, and I mean, there's a positive loop of people being grateful and saying what a big difference it makes. And
so let's talk. Let me answer the opposite of your question, right? So there's a reason not to start a meetup, and I've said this several times on the water cooler and in other places. Don't start a meetup for self-promotion, right? Don't start a meetup for self-interest. Don't do it to promote your business, right? Don't do it expecting it to get business.
I mean, self-interest is the broad term there.
Yes,
but I would argue that Jonathan's desire to see people's eyes light up would be
fine.
Self-interest.
Fine, self-business interest. Okay. Even if you're not directly doing those things, but you expect those things out of a meetup, your thinking around the meetup, your planning of the meetup, everything is going to be wrong, and it's just gonna come across that way. It's just your members are gonna feel it. It's gonna have a different air about the meetup. The energy is gonna be wrong in the room. Right, so that's the reason not to start a meetup.
Yeah.
So the reason is basically to hold space.
What's that?
It's like I feel like a lot of these meetups, and kind of Jonathan, what you were saying is like we just want to hold space for WordPress, so we're just gonna just make this space. It's like that's my Californian hippie. We're gonna hold space for WordPress here, and this is a safe WordPress space where we can all just be.
No, see, it's but
That's not my meetup.
it's not. So
No.
it is about the community, and I mean, I think WordPress, it's fantastic, and one of a lot of it is to connect people with resources, et cetera, but it's often rooted in what are they trying to accomplish? Like they have a thing that they're wanting to do on the web. And I think community and WordPress is like a vehicle and a conduit for that.
But can you really know who you will be answering that question for? Who is the they that you're talking about? If you don't if there's a community there that you're then serving that need for, but if you're just creating this space and then you're like, all right, we'll just answer what the needs of the people as they come in. We'll see if they're developers. We'll see if they're small business owners. We'll see if they're whoever they are and deal with that on the fly. Or are you expecting it to be a certain type of site user?
I mean, for me, this is part of why
I'll be right back. Sorry, guys.
This is why I'm curious to hear what you guys think. For me, it's the former of like, create the space, make it a safe space.
Told you.
Just sort of see who shows up, right? I mean, I think I see value in that, but I'm still new to this. I'm trying to figure it out.
So that's what we let our meetup kind of become in Bakersfield, and I feel like that's part of the reason it fizzled, is because like meeting the needs of the people, yes, is completely valuable. However, we were approaching it like a meetup when really, honestly, the way I should have presented it at the time was like, okay, if people are going to come here and have a thing, have it be like office hours, sort of, as opposed to a meetup. Have something where people can come. Yeah. So where people, in a meetup are expecting some sort of presentation. Honestly, if we had said like, just come down and let's like work through problems together, because that's how you figure things out, I think it would have gone a lot better. I think it would have gone further for this community. I think that would have helped bootstrap things. And to go back to like why I had started the meetup, when I would wear some of my WordPress t-shirts around town, people would be like, oh, you know WordPress? And I was like, just random people like at the Target or at the movie theater. And I was like, wow, there's actual WordPress people here. Like I need to start something and do something. And also I've been a remote worker for years now, 8+ years. And just being able to like go and talk to other people about WordPress, like in person, you kind of miss that, like sitting in front of Slack and sitting in front of, just chat all day, and really being able to like go talk to people in person about that, like kept kind of my passions and interest in WordPress like kind of stoked. So that was, yeah.
I'm a teacher at heart. Like
Yeah.
I hate
You're
students.
You're a sharer. Sure.
I hate students, but I'm a teacher at heart. And so I really love like sitting down and explaining something to somebody. And I'm one of those people that really believes in like steel sharpening steel, like this idea of if I have one little nugget I can share with you, you're going to come back to me and have one little nugget to share with me. And at some point, the teacher is now going to be the student and vice versa. So there's something about that really attracts like meetups. Why meetups are attractive to me is that fact that I can teach and I can also be taught in the same space, and I'm providing the space to make it happen.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've always said at our meetup, right? Is everyone's a teacher. Everyone's got something to teach, right? Even somebody who's brand new in the room has something to teach. And so what we've always encouraged is everybody has the opportunity to share. We want you to share, and we want you to get up in front of the room and give a presentation on anything, really, right? Everybody's a teacher.
Well, and I think it's been kind of interesting when you look at kind of the different groups around Orange County, LA, and Whittier and stuff like that. Each one kind of has like a core group, and then you have this little circle of people that follow and go to every one of them all around within 30, 50 miles. And I'm kind of thinking, it's kind of interesting, especially when you have the same speaker. So it's kind of interesting seeing the personalities and the psychologies. So I think if you're not just there to share, if you're trying to grow your business, you're probably doing disjustice to yourself and the other people there. I mean, that's why I started One Up Accessibility under Jason, just because I got so frustrated with people that were selling stuff to customers and their damn sites weren't accessible. So I thought if we could bring them in and just show little nuggets, maybe they'll do a better job and we'll look better as an industry.
Well, on the flip side to that, and I think Cosper sort of touched on this, maybe not, but there you can identify really quickly who the takers are at the meetup, and that can cause some burnout, right? So if you've got a meetup that is that's 3 people, but everybody is a sharer, that's fine. I don't care about the numbers, but if you've got 3 takers, that's frustrating. That can cause a lot of burnout.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what caused the burnout.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's like a bad networking event, right? Where everyone's just trying to sell you something or get something out.
Isn't that redundant? Isn't bad networking event? That's just. Do you need to say the bad part? Or?
I feel like there could be a good networking event somewhere.
Okay.
Like that's.
You let me know. You let me know, and I'll join you.
I mean, I'm not going to them, so I don't. It's not my. I'm not that tech monkey. But I do think that one thing that you hit on, Cosper, is a big part of it. I think, and you were even talking about this, there is a real social aspect to this, right? To the community aspect, where it's really about just connecting with other people who have the same kind of mindset and the same kind of interest in stuff. Because, technically, well, not technically, I suppose, but at the end of the day, we're all kind of geeky, right? And so it's like, this is like what we want to get together and geek out about. And whether we're doing that on Twitter or, Slack is not a really great place to geek out on anything, but but so getting together and bonding over this stuff or talking, it creates a social circle. And that's why I think, Glenn, you see people going to, all of the meetups around town, even if it's the same speaker, it's because they're seeing their friends, right? And they're seeing their community. So it's not about necessarily getting more business for a lot of people. It's not about, and maybe, it might be about learning things, but I think there's a really big aspect to a really big component to that social or whatever. It's a big social component is what I'm trying to say to this. And that contributes to the overall community. And then you go to your WordCamps and you see your people there. And it's like lends to that whole, these are my people, so to a certain degree, it's not that those folks are not even going, doesn't matter who's talking or what the topic is or who is, the needing help or taking or whatever. It's like, oh, hey, I get to see my friends and maybe we'll get dinner beforehand or whatever.
And you can compartmentalize that, right? So at our meetup, we do about an hour to an hour and a half of discussion, right? Very loose discussion. We don't have a topic at our meetups, right? So it's always, what do you want to talk about tonight? And then after that hour and a half, I give about 20 minutes of networking time or discussion time or talk amongst yourselves, right? And whatever people want that to be, let them have that time.
So in that, one of the things I'd just love to hear from you guys is I'm kind of looking at this meetup with fresh eyes of saying, all right, I think there's value here. I've heard a lot of positive things. What advice do you guys have for someone starting a meetup?
Ask your users what they want.
Yeah. I mean, that's
every region's different.
Everything, everywhere. You should always ask your users what they want, no matter what you're doing, whether they're your customers or your clients or your actual website users or your meetup attendees. That should be your first question is why am I doing this and what do these people actually want? Or am I just forcing this on them, what I want?
If you started a meetup and closed a meetup when you were wanting to do like a Shopify type meetup, can you talk about that for just a minute? Like what started that and then what stopped that? But not in the sense of why you did, but can you just talk a little bit about the fact that you started something up and then you found maybe that didn't work out and you're like, I'm just gonna shut this thing down as fast as possible.
Yeah, no, I started the Shopify Meetup because we saw some interest. I was interested in it, frankly, and I didn't know a lot. And so I just wanted to get some like-minded people in a room and start talking about Shopify stuff. And first, 4 or 6 meetups were great, right? We had Dave Andrews, who's a friend of mine, come and just kind of, he was definitely the Shopify guru in the room, and he was able to answer questions and ask new questions and share. And then after the 6, we had kind of covered the same things already, and people just stopped coming, right? And so I don't know that it fit the same loose format that I do with the WordPress meetups, right? Because once we covered it, we sort of covered it, and people were like, "Okay, I got what I needed. I don't need to come back," and so it just sort of it dropped off.
And the reason why I brought that up is because of the fact that Jonathan's getting into doing more WooCommerce type stuff and doing all those things as well. Obviously, your meetup is going to be more about WordPress itself. But I just wanted to kind of give you a cautionary tale, just so you can kind of work off of that a little bit with what Steve did.
But it doesn't have you can get specific, right? And so as you guys already know, we segmented our meetup, right? So we've got a general meetup, we've got a developer meetup, we've got a design meetup, we've had other kinds of meetups, but those are kind of the three consistent ones. Right. So if you want, you can have your sort of WordPress umbrella and start a WooCommerce specific meetup at certain times, and a developer day or night at certain times. So those things work well, because then you don't have everybody in one room with different needs, right? You're sort of segmenting people, and you get a lot more quality conversation that way.
I'm loving these YouTube comments popping up. Thanks.
I'm seeing them as well. Yeah.
And I think something Steve mentioned earlier about, just getting different people to share. It was kind of interesting, I thought, with last week's Riverside WordCamp. There were actually 2 people there that have been to Jason's meetups a lot, and they're in that area there, and it seems like they're always in the back kind of listening, and they gave great presentations, whether it was about security or working with Amazon for hosting. So it's, I think, getting those people maybe come up and share some things that maybe some of us could, again, get a few nuggets out of.
One of the comments that just came up on the screen there was find a location, right? Have a consistent location, and I think that's critical for any meetup. So consistent location and time every single month for your particular meetups or sub meetups is critical, because then people know when they can count on it. If it moves around, right, either in location or date, you're gonna have some drop off.
So something that when I was kind of coming up at first, one of the first meetups that I ever went to outside of bulletin board meetups, like back in the dial-up BBS days, was the 2600 hacker meetups. And in the Los Angeles area, it's the first Friday of every month. It's at Philippe's in downtown LA every month. And then after they're done there, after Philippe's closes, they would go to the Denny's around the corner, like just on the other side of Union Station.
Like but mom's gonna drop off,
and they'd hack the payphone on the way.
Consistently though, you could depend. First Friday of every month, you could show up at Philippe's until they closed, go into the back, and find that meetup. And if you missed them there, you could go to the Denny's, and they'd be there till like 3 a.m. And we would like when I was going, they would have people.
I don't know what you're talking about.
they would have people that would show up at like 1:30 in the morning. They're like, "Oh, I just got off work and wanted to come say hey," and it was just a social thing. And I mean, that community was a fantastic community when I was just kind of learning about hacking and computer security and stuff like that. So like a consistent location is absolutely key.
Yep.
I think what that same comment by Costa, not Cospa, but Costa, is that he says, let people introduce themselves. And I think that speaks to the idea of connecting people and building that community, because Absolutely. I really think that's what it comes down to. Because like with the Shopify thing, people only need to learn so much. And then they're like, okay, I got it. Like Shopify doesn't have the community aspect. It doesn't have all these different nuances and things around it. And so it's like, okay, it's like I went to these sessions and I got this information and now I'm just doing my thing. I'm not like exploring the community, or there's this whole other level of WordCamps, or there's like, every plugin we can discuss the debate, the nuances on, so like that that's what I think really makes WordPress different, and in a way is kind of more like the hacker community, right? They weren't just getting together to discuss the latest hacks. I mean, that's like the part of it, but like, that was a social thing. They're going hanging out, they're meeting their friends, and I think that is what makes WordPress so different. And that is also what makes the difference in like Steve's meetup, that's really set the tone for SoCal, having that community feel. And it feels like a big WordPress land because of OC. It's so consistent. It's there, and you meet the people, and they go to the different ones. You know, it's not just like a formal. It's not like a workshop every time where you're just like, okay, we're listening and doing that. It really is a community, and that is what I think people are looking for in that meetup, more than anything, more than just education. And I think that also helps us onboard people into the WordPress community. And that's where people start to feel connected to WordPress and feel that it's bigger than just their one website or just, you know, building websites to clients. That's why we get the loyalty also to WordPress versus, you know, oh, it's just another tool. Right, Steve?
During the pre-show, we talked a little bit about the fact that people that are wanting to speak at WordPress Meet or at WordCamps will use a WordPress meetup as their kind of test bed to figure out whether or not their material is going to work for a room. There's good and bad to that. The good is that, you know, you being the speaker get to come in and actually discuss this sort of thing and be able to do your presentation. The bad is everyone that's in the room is probably going to go to the local meetup and they're going to want to see that whole talk all over again. So maybe they get to hear a more polished version of it. So you have that.
What I think is interesting, and short of Jonathan, like most of us are in the Southern California area, and there are so many meetups from Santa Clarita to Riverside to LA to OC, and how many different meetups are there that someone in just the greater and lesser Los Angeles area can hit, like inside of just being able to like drive an hour from their house. Like the fact that you can actually workshop things kind of at local meetups outside of the Eastern Seaboard, where you get something where you can drive, you know, between New York and Philly and something like that. Like I used to have coworkers at previous jobs who would hit up a few meetups that were like one state over. But I mean, I feel like LA and that whole area is a really interesting region that you can get away with doing that. I think that a smaller community that maybe only has like one or two meetups, like you're going to burn your goodwill and the chance to give your talk locally by workshopping stuff, you know, at your 2 or 1 or whatever local meetup, and then trying to give it at the local WordCamp. But, you know, if for someone like myself, I've given presentations like all over the US, like it's something where it's like the locals get to see it before everyone else. They get to kind of, you know, check the presentation out. Like I get to get feedback. Those rooms are normally smaller rooms and tend to be, my presentations there tend to be a little more conversational. So, you know, it definitely helps me shape those things. But absolutely, like if you're going to give a talk like that, don't necessarily burn all of your local meetups and then 6 months later or 4 months later submit your talk to the WordCamp, and it's like, well, we've already seen this from you. Like, what else you got?
But you can go someplace else and pitch it as well. So there's nothing wrong with that too.
Sure.
Jonathan, I think you have a lot to think about.
As a quick note, I actually think that that's against the WordCamp speaker submission rules, that you're not, it may depend on the WordCamp, but I don't think you're allowed to submit the same talk twice. You're not supposed to.
Well, I think it's that you aren't really encouraged to choose those. It's not that you're not allowed to submit them.
Oh, I can submit. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. The organizers.
Has this been talked about already? Has this talk been done? Whatever. And I think a lot of that actually comes from WordPress TV and them wanting to have original content. But let's be real about this. This is literally hundreds of meetups and hundreds of talks that are happening, you know, monthly, every few months. And then there's all these WordCamps, and like how many topics are there?
There's only so many topics, right?
Yeah, like I mean, how many top 10 plugin, you know, talks are there? How many, you know, what's the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org talks are there? Like you know, when it's just strictly technical stuff, you run out of things really quickly. You know, so that's where, again, the community aspect comes in. But in terms of trying to structure your talks and have people come in, like, you will run out of topic. You will.
Yep. And with that, I want to say Thank you very much for all you folks for hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it. For all the folks that were hanging out in the chat room, thank you very much. If you like this content, hit the little share button and send it off to folks so they can take a look at it later as well. If you're running a meetup or something like that, leave a comment in the comments box. Just let us know about your meetup, maybe what you're doing over there or where your meetup's located. You can go over to our website over at WPwatercooler.com/subscribe. That's where you can learn how to subscribe to this as well as all the other things that are going on. So talk to y'all later. You have a good one. Bye-bye.
Later.
See ya.